of Bhagavatam. Anya Vilashita Shunya. How much is it acceptable amount of this stuff? Shunya. 0. Should all be kicked out. Jnana Karma, Jnana Karma, Yoga, this, that. And Anukulina, Krishna Anushila. Anushila means cultivation by following the footsteps of the acharyas. That's Anukulina. Anukulina, Krishna Anushila. That's Krishna Anushila. Cultivation of that which is favorable for Krishna service. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya. To accept what's favorable and reject what's unfavorable. Srila Prabhupada, those were the opening words of the purport to text 3. Text 3 is very practical. Utsaha nishchaya tarya tattva karma pravartana. Sangha tyagat sato vate shadbir bhaktir prasiddhiti. This is how to become perfect in devotional service, by following these 6 principles. Utsaha, enthusiasm. And there's another wonderful line in the purport. What is utsaha? What is enthusiasm? Endeavor executed with intelligence and Krishna consciousness is called enthusiasm. Endeavor executed with intelligence in Krishna consciousness. That's enthusiasm. It's not. It's endeavor, it's activity, executed with intelligence, not just sentiment. In Krishna consciousness, not mundane intelligence. Guided by the acharyas, guided by the shastras, so that it's actually Krishna consciousness and not something else. Endeavor, executed with intelligence, in Krishna consciousness is called enthusiasm. Nishchaya, one should be confident. We talked about that the other day. Because I'm following the right path, I have confidence, this will work. I just have to be patient, and tattva karma pravartana. Prabhupada glosses that very simply. Let me pull it up because you might not believe me. Most people don't. Or because the process of speaking in spiritual circles is to say something upheld by authorities. Patience, not expecting. Said it earlier. It won't surprise you. You should find it out. This is significant too. This is such a great purport that there's just gems all over the place. In order to attain perfection in Bhakti Yoga, one has to perform devotional activities under the direction of the spiritual master in all phases of life. Brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, youth, old age. It is not that one has to confine or narrow one's activities. Krishna is all-pervading. Therefore, nothing is independent of Krishna. As Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Maya Tatamidam Sarvam, quotes that, and everywhere. And it gives the example of the dictaphone. It's the energy of Krishna, so it's used in Krishna's service. So the devotee can understand that since nothing is independent of Krishna's energy, everything should be dovetailed in his service. It's already explained, one should not be very enthusiastic. I guess this was a previous purport. One should be very enthusiastic, utsaha, about executing the regulative principles. Tat-tat karma pravartana. Neglect of the regulative principles will destroy devotional service. In this Krishna consciousness movement, there are 4 basic regulative principles: forbidding illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. A devotee must be very enthusiastic about following these principles. If he becomes slack in following any of them, his progress will certainly be checked. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore recommends tat-tat karma pravartana. One must strictly follow the regulative principles of Vaidhi, Bhakti. In addition to these 4 prohibitions, yama, there are positive regulative principles, niyam, such as the daily chanting of 16 rounds on japa mala beads. These regulative activities must be faithfully performed with enthusiasm. This is called tat-tat karma pravartana, or varied engagement in devotional service. Then one should give up the association of non-devotees. If one lives in the association of devotees, there's little chance of associating with non-devotees. So devotional service means transcendental activities. That's called, then Prabhupada's glossing, Chatovate. On the transcendental platform, there's no contamination by the 3 modes of material nature. This is called Vishuddha Sattva, the platform of pure goodness, goodness free from contamination by the qualities of passion and ignorance. In this Krishna consciousness movement, we require everyone to rise early in the morning by 4 o'clock and attend Mangal Arti or morning worship, then read Srimad Bhagavatam, perform Kirtan, and so forth. Thus we hold continuous activities in devotional service, 24 hours daily. This is called Chatovritti, or following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas, who expertly filled every moment of time with Krishna-conscious activities. If one strictly follows the advice given in this verse by Sri Rupa Goswami, namely, being enthusiastic, being confident, being patient, giving up the association of unwanted persons, following the regulative principles, and remaining in the association of devotees, one is sure to advance in devotional service. So this is our unsurprising program. All of these activities confirm or exist on the platform of spirit. There are activities that are constitutionally on the platform of the body. The activities of the whole material world are focused on aham mameti, and body, false sense of false body identification, extensions of that. And Krishna consciousness means no. Practical activities. Rishikena Rishikesha would say that we may use our senses, but we use them in Krishna's service. So, under the guidance of the acharyas, these activities of deity worship engages us in practical activities in the service of Krishna. You have to collect flowers, you have to wash the deity paraphernalia, you have to do this at this time, you have to do that. Busy in the service of the deities of practical activities. Chanting the holy name of Krishna, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, associating with devotees, living in a sanctified place like Vrindavan or Krishna's temple. These things all, this is the world of activity on the spiritual platform. So that's the platform that we want to be on. The platform where we not only think, I'm not this body, but we're full of practical activities. Our life consists of practical activities in the service of Krishna. Comments, questions, thoughts?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Microphone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. There's this one.
At the knee it doesn't help you. It's got to be unhygienically close to the mouth.
There is one aspect that I was thinking of while you were stating this fact of how devotional service is practical activity, and that's what Srila Prabhupada states. So this is not maybe even a properly informed question, but I was thinking that of course at this stage, if I look at a personal level, when I am trying to execute devotional service or this practical activity, it's still at a mechanical stage, so to speak. It's still mechanical. However, there is some taste in devotional service. Then I was wondering, where does this taste come from? Because it is practical activity.
It comes from the mechanical activities. You know, if you do mining and you start coming up with gold or gems or something, where did they come from? They came from, not from mining. They didn't just spontaneously appear because you were sincere. They came because you were sincere and intelligent, and you dug in the right place and you set up the machines, and you were patient, and you drilled, and you start coming up with gold or petroleum or whatever it was. That's the idea of Vaidhi Bhakti. It's not just stuff we do because we like being mechanical. We admire the robots in which we like them. It's because it's practical. It does something. Where does spontaneous devotional service come from? Well, sometimes it comes from Lord Chaitanya embracing you or something, but most of us are not going to get it that way. So where does it come from? It comes from practical activity. Why is Rupa Goswami telling us to do this stuff? Is it that he wants to see us engaged in, well, it's really karma with some devotional service painted on it. You know, we distribute books, for example, because that's kind of, well, we have to be active, and so we need to be engaged in something that will channel our passions and keep us busy. And practical activity in the service of Krishna. And it leads to spontaneous enthusiasm for serving Krishna. In the beginning, the spiritual master says, 4:30, Mangalarti. You all have to come. 4:30? How couldn't they make it at least 5? But after some time, this is nice. You don't want to miss it. And as you go on and on, It's the same stuff. I think Sanatana Goswami, was it Sanatana Goswami, where they said that his regular principles were like a line drawn in stone? Raghunath Das Goswami, thank you. Like a line, now he's our Prayojana Acharya, thank you very much. You know, the Acharya of the perfection of love for Radha and Krishna. And his regular principles were like a line drawn in stone. What does that mean? Why was he wasting his time on these stupid regular principles when he could have been doing something juicier? For him, the regular principles were ecstatic. It wasn't just routine work that you have to do, and so we can get on to the good stuff later on. The regular principles of devotional service lead to ecstasy. And if we don't go step by step, then your ecstasy can be imaginative ecstasy. We psych ourselves into it. It's ecstatic. But it's not. Because why is it not? Because I'm still attached to intoxicants or illicit sex or whatever. You know, I have two kinds of ecstasy. I have an ecstatic kirtan and I go for the other ecstasy. That means it's imagination. But if we strictly follow the regulative principles, that regulative life turns into ecstatic devotion and service. It becomes ecstatic. So the advanced devotees love to follow the regulative principles. Or just naturally follow, you know. It's not that the advanced transcendentalists are thinking, oh, no gambling. They don't have, you know, it's like a foreign world to them. But this world of coming to see the deity, rendering some service to the deity, associating with the devotees, hearing Bhagavatam, chanting Hare Krishna, this is where, this is wonderful. This is what they do, Maschita Mankita Prana. This is where their life goes. So the idea that these regulative principles are some sort of like, what's the word? My words are not there. Like some relic, some leftover, some sort of
remnants?
No, there's the word.
Remnants?
Like residual, leftover, but no longer functional, or no longer valuable thing. There's a word that says exactly that.
Remnants? Remnants?
No. Anyway, don't trouble your head with that someday. But the idea that these are some sort of vestigial, thank you, good, came up with that. That these are some sort of vestigial remnants, you know, vestigial like an appendix. You know, you don't really need it, but it's still there for some reason in the system. So you don't really need all these regular principles, but they're still there for some, we don't know why. Especially since we've passed all that, so just, who cares about that stuff? Raghunath Das Goswami cares about it, like a line in stone. So, Satchidananda was talking about that the other day, that, you know, japa become just like a chore. How many rounds done? How many rounds left? How long will it take? But once we move past that, or start to move past that, what is it? I want to chant, I get to chant, I love to chant. That becomes a whole different world. It's the same business. One person is sitting here, how many rounds left? And then another person is sitting next to him doing the same thing, chanting Hare Krishna, thinking about this. And Rupa Goswami is talking about kirtan, which had thousands of tongues, thousands of ears. So one gets that either by, totally by causeless mercy, or by following regulative principles. And even following the regulative principles is causeless mercy. By the mercy of the Vaishnavas, by the mercy of the spiritual master, one finds out about these principles and takes to them and follows them. That's also causeless mercy. But the whole thing can be, just dumped on you here, take love of Krishna. But our general process probably would just say, join in ISKCON, and 2 days you'll have love of Krishna. And I attended a conference one time where there was a representative of a meditation organization. And it was like, everything you want, we have in stock. By this meditation, you'll have your relationships will improve. You'll do better in your studies, you'll do better in your job, and finally you'll emerge with the cosmic field of intelligence or whatever it was. Whatever you want, you just sign up, pay your dues, and it'll all be yours. So the Prophet didn't cheat us. He didn't say, you just join ISKCON and you'll get love of Krishna in a week. What will you get? You'll get 4 regulative principles, you'll get 16 rounds a day, you'll get a whole program of activities, you'll get Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll get Bhagavad Gita, you'll get everything, and you follow these things, and you'll get love of Krishna. But if you think that you'll skip the love of Krishna, we have news. It doesn't work. There's a book by Srila B.R. Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's godbrother, and he was discussing this verse, Ado Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya. These steps are there to have some initial faith and to associate with devotees, to take up process of regulative life under the guidance of pure devotee, to become freed from unwanted things in the heart, to get some taste, attachment, ecstasy, love for Krishna. He said if you skip any one of these points, any one of these stages, the portion you have skipped will remain hollow. The portion you have skipped will remain hollow. Sometimes we've seen, there was some incident in Bombay a few years back where a building collapsed, office building or residential building, multi-story. And on investigation, they found, of course, that it collapsed because the builder used cheap cement. He just skimped on the quality of the cement. And so the building stood for a while and looked really good, and then it collapsed. That's what will happen. I have a disciple who he's a chemical engineer, and he works with drug manufacturing. Now he's in a different one. And he worked in a collaboration for a while. His company, Merck, big chemical company. Were they originally German? Anyway, Merck. They had a tie-up with an Indian company and were sort of showing the Indian company, getting it set up. And so this devotee was going back and forth to Bombay to help. And the processes were all failing. You do this and you measure that and you get this and you say check and you go on to the next thing. And they weren't working. Why weren't they working? because the Indian company was skimping. If the specs said that you had to have something, 7 centimeters in diameter, they'd find a cheaper one for 5. So skimping. And the result is that your process fails. You thought you were smart. The expression is penny wise, pound foolish. We thought that we were smart, but at the end, who do we cheat? We cheat ourselves. Because we don't get the desired outcome. When I learned Spanish at school, I thought I was being very smart. I sort of cheated on the verbs. There are ways that you can sort of skip learning some of the stuff and use these little crutches, sort of. So I did that, and it worked. But to this day, my verbs are really poor in Spanish. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to have devotional service that's imaginative ecstasy, or what was the other one? Sentimental speculation. We want practical activity, and these are the practical activities what Prabhupada gave us. And it's not, as Prabhupada said, it's not limiting or confining. There's so much activity. Everything is there. Whatever skill, whatever talent, whatever capability. Everything can be used in the service of Krishna, but under proper guidance and on the strong foundation of following the regular principles. Otherwise it becomes, of course, newcomers, we invite them, just do something for Krishna. We don't care if you follow, don't follow, just do something. But then, after that, well, shall we follow it? No. Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you follow this? Follow that? We don't want to just have an international society of spiritual weaklings. So this final achievement, love for Krishna, will come, but we have to be patient. We have to work with enthusiasm. We have to follow the regular principles associated with devotees. Something else? Yes?
I just wanted to comment and maybe you can say
Sure.
something.
Hold on, we'll give you a microphone.
Krishna, I just wanted to comment and then maybe you can say something about it. I was just listening to the lecture of my Guru Maharaj, who said that actually, that following the regulative principles brings us to the platform of being a human. And then actually, then something higher can start.
These 4 regular principles, Prabhupada said, that's human life. There are more regular principles. There's, Mangalarti and all sorts of other things we do. But these 4 rules, that's human life. That's human life. Or from another point of view, Prabhupada said, Kali Yuga, these are the 4 pillars of sinful life. Intoxicants, gambling, meat eating, illicit sex. Well, any building, if you pull down the pillars, the building collapses. So in this case, that's the desired outcome. Yesham Tvantakatam Bhavatam. That sinful life finished. In summary, what is sinful life? Intoxicants, gambling, meat eating, illicit sex. So then, Janana, Punya Karma, then pious activities, spiritual activities. Even Jesus, what is it? He excused, I think, the prostitute, but sin no more. Yes, you're forgiven for all your sins, but sin no more. Stop. Enough. We've done enough. No more sinful activities. te dvandva moha nirmukta. If we stop these sinful activities and engage ourselves in practical activities in the service of Krishna, then we'll be freed from duality and illusion. And bhajante mam vridha vridha, will be able to concentrate with determination on serving Krishna, on making progress in Krishna consciousness, on transforming our lives. Yes, Radhika.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about faith. When you mentioned the different stages from Jayadvaita Maharaj's book, so when I read that, he gives an explanation of faith being what we are born with, not dependent on experiment or experiences. It's the only element that we possess that is not depending on any experience. And so could you please speak, it was very deep, so a bit difficult to grasp. So could you please speak about the intensity of faith, the different kinds of faith, and it seems that we don't really lose faith, because if we're born with it, it's not depending on anything external.
Yes.
Could you please...
This is a seminar in itself, the faith seminar. It's a little hard for me to comment on Srila Sridhar Maharaj's discussion of faith because I don't remember it. I really, that point stuck out in my mind that this portion will remain hollow, but I don't recall the details of this discussion of faith, so I'm not in a position to be able to say, well, here's what he was talking about, or here's what he meant. But I can say a few things about what Srila Prabhupada said about faith. Of course, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kori, Sudrita Nishchay, Krishna Bhakti Kori, Sarvakaram Kritaya. Faith is that understanding or conviction that just like Krishna consciousness, everything else will be accomplished. Sudrita Nishchay, strong confidence that just like Krishna Bhakti, I don't have to perform karma, I don't have to speculate, I don't have to do yoga, I don't have to do this, I don't have to do that, I don't have to worship the demigods, I don't have, just by Krishna consciousness, everything, all my purposes will be achieved. Krishna Bhakti Karma, Sarva Karma, all pious activities, everything is there in Krishna consciousness. One time, Srila Prabhupada, this was at a lecture in Toronto, Srila Prabhupada was explaining the verse Ashradhana Purusha, Dharmasya Parantapa, faithless person who has no faith, can't achieve me, and just falls back into birth and death. And there Srila Prabhupada defined faith as interest. Interest. Why do we come to the Hare Krishna temple? Why do we read a book or participate? Somehow we have some interest. What are these people doing? What is this about? Or maybe this is what I'm looking for. Or maybe this will help me. Somehow we have some initial interest. And Srila Prabhupada, on that occasion, that was his gloss of Shraddha, of faith. Interest. Where does that come from? Generally we understand it comes from your previous life. In the Bhagavad Gita, Parvadehika. Okay. In the 6th chapter. Purvabhyasena Tena. This is a great book. You just hold it and the verses come to you. I haven't done a study of how that works, but Pravabhya sena tenaiva priyate yadashopi saha. Automatically, the person who practiced yoga in his previous life but didn't finish it, automatically becomes attracted. Avasha means automatically, or it means helplessly. It's not under his control. You know, you'd like to just dedicate yourself to sense gratification like all of the other kids, but somehow or other you've got this nagging thing in your head that there's got to be something more than that. You see these kids you're on the street with the St. Kirtan party and some kid's pulling on his mom's arm, you know. Wants to be there with the Kirtan party. Not that every kid does that, but some kids do that. So, from previous lives this may come. Kriyate yadasho, adasha, helplessly, automatically, not under his control, just spontaneously, you can say, he's interested. According to his, you know, whatever if he left off at 25%, he's got a 25% interest. If he left off at 80%, it's at 80%. But this initial interest is there. Not everyone's interested. Some people are aggressively non-interested. Stubborn obstinacy, Prabhupada called it. They don't know what they want to do in life, but they know that they don't want to serve Krishna. Some people are naturally attracted. They have some initial interest. They stick their heads first they look through the window, and then they walk in the door, and then they ask a question, or whatever it is. Interest. And on that interest, you can build. It's like initial capital. Start with something, and you can build up. By association, also, interest develops. I may not have that much interest, but somebody, come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. I mean, all right. You're not that interested, but by good fortune, you're associated with someone who's more interested than you. You can say has more faith. And that initial interest is enough to become a start. What's the result? Sadhu Sangha. Comes the association of the devotees. Devendra Maharaj told how he got a book. He found it really interesting, but he didn't want to associate with the devotees. I just want the book. But Krishna got him. And then, by association with devotees, what happens? Bhajana Kriya. They give you beads, they give you books to read, they give you prasadam to read, they give you wash these pots. And then we meet a spiritual master. We agree, all right, I'll follow what you say. Bhajana Kriya. And then the hearts and unwanted things. And of course, you can say that devotional service is the progress of faith from the neophyte devotee who has weak faith, pliable faith, up to the Uttamadhikari who has unshakable faith. So as we're associating with devotees, as we're following the regulative principles, as we're freeing our hearts from the unwanted things, as we're developing more attachment, as we're moving on, our faith is increasing. Is that okay?
I have some of the same point. This verse, Yashidevi Parama. Yashidevi Parama Bhaktir why is Bhakti always translated as faith?
Bhakti. Why Yasadeva Bhakti Yatadevi Tathaga? Why is it translated that way? One who has full faith in the spiritual master, full faith in Krishna and full faith in the spiritual master. Good question. One answer would be that that's a realized translation. Prabhupada's translations are not dictionary exercises. The scholars are every word they're looking up in the Moyer Williams dictionary to make sure they have a very proper translation. Prabhupada didn't work that way. And Prabhupada said people like my books because they're realized. The books represent realization. Realization means you understand it. You can use a dictionary without understanding it. I could translate German into English and English into German. Just give me a set of rules. I may not understand one word of German, but I can translate it. Just give me the rules. When you see this, make it that. When you see this, make it that. But to understand German is another story altogether. To understand English is another story altogether. Prabhupada understood. Tasyate katikar yartha prakashate. He understood the purport, and so he's getting a realized translation. Apart from that, bhakti, usually we say, means devotion. Devotion implies that there's faith there. I won't be devoted without faith. I'm tempted to look in the dictionary and see what it says for bhakti, but now that I've dissed the dictionary, it seems a bit hypocritical. Still. It's because I can't claim realization. That's strange. Always. My direction. Good. No such combination. Great. None of the definitions apply. Dictionary doesn't help at all.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, and Maharaj, can you maybe say something practical? If you do something in ISKCON or in our individual life where we act not according to Shruti Smriti Puranadi, that we know that we are going off track, I'm always a little bit anxious, is that thing that I'm doing, is this really devotional service? So can you give some light on this?
See if I understood the question. Whether you're in ISKCON, like in ISKCON temple, or living outside, but we're doing something that's not in accordance with the direction of Shastra. And where are we? What are we doing? Is it bhakti? Is that your question?
Yeah, can you maybe say some, maybe you observed something that is not in line when you mentioned the food for life as example?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing is that one should act, acharya upasana, one should act under the direction of the acharya, the spiritual master. it's not that everything will be mentioned in the scripture. If I'm looking at getting a job in molecular biology, I first look and see if molecular biology is mentioned in Shastra, and then what does it say about taking a job as a lab technician. This may not be there. But the directions of the spiritual master or the spiritual master's representatives may be there. And then that becomes our guide. The engagements will differ according to our ashram. Brahmacharis have one set of engagements. Grahasthas have other engagements that fit their ashram. And any differences there. We should not act contrary to the directions of the spiritual master and the Shastra. That we should avoid. Not everything may be particularly mentioned. But for practical application, we have to see what is, therefore, the spiritual master's guidance is there. What should I do? What should be my practical activities? Now, for ISKCON, we're given lots of practical activities. Distribute books, that's like the top of the practical activity hierarchy, practically speaking. It's practical, it reaches the public, it distributes knowledge, it finances the organization, it engages me in all of my intelligence and physical capability, everything is engaged. But that's not our only engagement. We have keeping the accounts for the temple, we have cleaning the temple floor, we have publishing books, we have worshiping the deity, we have sewing and cooking. So we have lots and lots of activities that we know. These are things that Prabhupada told us to do. These are the things that are the standard things that you do in devotional service. And we may be so fortunate that that's all that we do. Day and night, that we have those activities. We're either worshiping the deity, we're distributing books, we're preaching, we're managing temple affairs, we're all busy and direct spiritual activities, hearing, chanting, and so on. Then you don't have to guess very much. Is it authorized to distribute books? Then we may have other activities, especially in householder life, things that we do for our livelihood. And they're Shatovrite. Sri Rupa Goswami has suggested or given us this guidance that we should try to have, you could say, an honest occupation. That we should try for. You probably wouldn't want to work in McDonald's. Something that's consistent with the Shastra directions. And you don't want to invent something or concoct something in the spiritual side of things. For livelihood, you can invent something. Prabhupada said a grihastha invents a simple means of livelihood, and Krishna helps him. I know one devotee in Vancouver who's living in the Sharanagati farm community. And it's Canada, there was all these pine trees, like this. And he built himself a little cabin, and he and his wife and kids were living there. And he would pick up sticks, and he would hollow out the stick and put a pen point in it, and varnish it, sand and varnish the stick, and sell it as a pen for good money. They were selling them on the Vancouver ferry. And what is it? Sticks. And a little sandpaper, just picking up sticks around his house and turning them into money. So he invented some simple means of livelihood in Christianity. So the householders have to support their families. And you should try for some honest way to do that. If they're able to spread Krishna consciousness in that context, we were talking about Bhakti hospital doctors the other day, and it's wonderful. But in any case, but we don't want to invent things in Krishna consciousness that would be outside of the wishes of the Acharya. Is that okay? Yes.
It's a little bit exploration on the same point. If, let's say, we have, in practical, you talked about the regulative principles as a also basis in being authorized, which makes the devotional service. And knowing myself, then this is a question about authorization, because let's say I need to get authorized, so then I pick out the devotee who will agree with my views. That's kind of one element I would like to bring, and I would like to see what would be the qualification of one who is authorizing, and what would be the sincerity of the one who is seeking authorization.
What would be the sincerity of the person who's seeking authority, seeking to find an authority? Especially, it seems that in the case of what we call in America judge shopping. In the legal arena, you try to get your case before a judge that you think will be favorable. And what's the qualification of the authority? So let's start with the authority. Kshotriya and Brahmanishna. That's the qualification. Shabde Purajinishnatam Brahmanishna. Kshotriya and Brahmanishna. He has to have heard from the authority, from the Shastras, from the Parampara system, and Brahmanishna. He has to have full faith in Krishna. Kshotriya and Brahmanishna. Or sometimes that's explained as he should be familiar with the literature, and he should understand how to practically apply the teachings. Yes. Tasma Guru Prabhudeta Jigyasu Shreya Shabde Parajinishnatam Pramili Smupashram. Yes. So the Tadvidyanartam Saguru Nilabhyashchet Samipanam Shrochim Pramishna. So the bona fide authority is the person who's coming into civic succession, who's heard and who's followed. Now, as far as those of us who are looking for someone, yes, it requires sincerity. And if we're insincere, if we're looking for a person who will basically bless my sense gratification, you get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. And there's lots of people who set up shop that way, the sort of professional gurus, and they bless your family, and they bless you, and bless your wife, and bless your kids, and bless. And you regularly contribute to the guru's temple. And your name is. And that's really all that's expected. And you can do that if you want. But if you're more ambitious, spiritually speaking, you want to really achieve the things talked about in the literature, you really want to come to this standard, then you look for that. In school, you can look for the courses that are like, what is it, an easy pass? Right? It's basically, the course isn't really worth anything, but you'll pass it, no problems. So you get a few of those courses and you're happy. But the students who are really serious, they want to hear from the professor who's the leading guy in the field. They don't mind doing more work if they're going to get more understanding. It's up to you. So from one point of view, you can look at it that way. You're looking for someone who will just say, that's all right, you just keep everything the way it is. And that's all right, you don't really have to change anything. And that's all right, 12 pounds is okay. And that's all right for regular principles. We can understand if you're trying, then that's good enough. I think it's generally understood that try is a failure word. Right? You don't understand that try, it's a failure word. Can you have this from me on Friday? I'll try. Thanks, I'll do business with someone who says yes. I'll try. I'll try isn't good enough. It's not. What are the 4 principles you agree to try to follow? Do you agree to follow these principles? I'll try. You wait. But if you want someone who's satisfied with I'll try, then you get what you get. Yes? And just to, that's not to just totally toss out empowered people who grab you from wherever you are and bring you up. Because that's there also. That's also there. The Prabhupada, just grabbed people who were in any kind of situation and wasn't too picky in the beginning about how strict they were or how human they were. He just grabbed us up. But he had a plan. He knew where he was taking us. I just wanted to add that so I didn't become too procrastinating. Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking from the terms of the authority. You mentioned these, the one who is situated in knowledge, who follows. I was referring what would be the markers? This is more, I guess, coming from, let's say, someone living outside. He doesn't have maybe that direct connection to his spiritual master, and then he's looking for someone to guide him. So it wouldn't be gurus, as per se, in ISKCON. It would be maybe some mentor, like that. And how externally one could seek out, is this something?
Generally, we want to see that the people who are guiding us, first of all, are good devotees, as we would say. Which mostly you can tell. It's pretty much out in the open. Are they chanting? Are they reading? Are they talking about Krishna? Is what they say in line with Shastra? Are they following a regulated Krishna conscious life? And generally, you can see these things. It doesn't take a whole lot of tremendous introspection. Generally, it's seen. Now, yes, there can be. We can be fooled. We can think someone was good and they weren't so good. But you're asking about the external side. You want to see what people are following.
I think in terms of you mentioned is judge shopping in terms of looking for a person. From personal experience, I was looking for a person who could relate to my experience.
These are details. Like, it's a principle that if you want this job, you have to have a college degree. So you have to get a college degree. Now, which college you go to, that's a detail. Some people want to go to big colleges because they're big, they have all these resources. And some people want to go to very small colleges because they'll get more personal attention and they get to know everybody. Some people want to go to an Ivy League college, a big name college. And some people don't care about the name. Some people give up the big name college to attend a college where there's a department that's really strong in the thing they want to study. Some people want to be in California. Someone wants to be close to home. Someone wants to not pay more than X. So there's all sorts of details when you choose a college, yes? So similarly, you want someone you can relate to, you want someone who's warm and funny, or you want someone who's brave, or you want someone who's tall or short or in the middle, or you want someone older. Some people want Indians, some people don't want Indians, some people, whatever it is, that's all details. Do what you want. But Shante Parejana Nishnata, what is that? Shrodriyam Nishnata, that's the real thing you want. They're like cars, they're all the same, really. They'll all get you from Zurich to Basel.
Not Ford. Not Ford.
Not Ford, yeah. But a car is a car, basically. But somebody wants a luxury car, and somebody wants one of the cars that just scream practical. And some people want something in the middle, and some people want more room for luggage, and some people want mustard color. Everybody wants something different in the car. But basically, it's got to have a steering wheel. It's got to have wheels. It's got to be within the state regulations, so you can drive it on the road, and so on. And you want an electric car? Get an electric car. You want a petrol car? Get a petrol car. You want to spend this much or this much or this much? But get a car. Or walk. But if you're getting a car, get a car. The rest is details. Whether you get a Honda or a Toyota or Ford or a Mercedes or a Lexus or a Tesla, that's do what you like. But it's got to be a car. As defined by the state. Okay? Rupa Goswami says that I'm giving the basic principles, and there's so many details, and the details may differ. Someone's known for being totally into book distribution, someone's known for being totally into Harinam, someone's known for being a scholar, someone's known for being a preacher, someone's known. What attracts you, that's up to you, but stay within qualifications. Is that okay? Yes? You have a question? Someone else? Yes?
Hare Krishna. I wanted to ask you, what does it really mean to give up the association of non-devotees?
What does it mean to give up the association of non-devotees? Srila Prabhupada explained that, and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also explained that. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and basically it's the same explanation. It means intimate association. In the verse, Tadati Pratigrinati, Prabhupada says, we'll do this with devotees, not with outsiders, to share our hearts, and so on. That's with the devotees. And with the outsiders, no. So association means intimate association. Ordinary association, it's like not that, we get on the bus and then we see that the driver's not wearing tilak, and so we get off the bus. That's ordinary association. But intimate association, that should be with devotees. Srila Prabhupada tells a story, I guess, Hitopadesha, one of those stories, about the monkey and the alligator. You know the story? There was a monkey who was traveling and he wanted to travel over the river. So when he got to the river, the alligator was there and he said, well, I'll take you across. And just hop on my back and I'll get you there. Monkey said, okay. So he got on the alligator's back. And the alligator took him out into the river. And when he was halfway out, he said, well, now we're going to submerge. And my wife and I are going to have a love feast. We're going to eat your heart. Monkey said, should have told me. Why didn't you tell me when we were on the shore? I mean, you just should have told me. Because I left my heart back home. But it's not too late. You just take me back to the shore, and then I'll go back and get my heart, and then you can have your love feast. The alligator said, well, that sounds like a good idea. So he took the monkey back to the shore, and the monkey jumped off. How do you go? So the moral is, when you go out with the alligators, leave your heart at home. Yes.
Hare Krishna. I was wondering, is there any room in Krishna consciousness while we are still on the pretty much mechanical platform to do something which most modern people would call follow your heart? Which means, like, you mentioned that there's actually so many activities which can be dovetailed to devotional service, and this should be done under guidance. Still, it seems to me that sometimes it's hard to remain patient and just keep going and resist all the maybe more juicy looking things which are out there, like Bhogi Yogi, so many offers of more, feel more and express more and be more yourself, be authentic, go with the flow, follow your heart. So how can we...
What room do we have for following our hearts? First, let's look at what this heart is, first of all. Heart, citta, or what have you, consciousness. Our present state is that our hearts are pure consciousness polluted by three modes of material nature. So if we follow our hearts, if we make that our standard, our goal is to follow our hearts, then you'll wind up in perpetual samsara, because the heart is polluted. That's the disease. That's our problem. So if we make the problem the solution, we're going to be in serious trouble. So that's an opening for openers. And there are people who really believe that. There's an example. Humanistic psychology, for those who are into psychology. Who is the leader of humanistic psychology? I've forgotten his name. Anyway, he and his early followers, they went to prisons, and they were sort of working with prisoners and finding that their techniques of sort of helping people open up and find out what they were really about and what they really desired in life was helping people with make progress. And they were sort of a reaction to the mechanistic, Skinnerian behaviorists who came before them. Man is not a machine, man is a human being, people are human beings, and so we want to get them in touch with their authentic selves. So they were doing that, but then they realized that prison population is not really so representative of humanity, and they wanted to do other things. So they did an experiment where they talked to the leader, the sisters at a convent, and the sisters of such and such, and explained what they wanted to do and what they were about, and got in, yes, we can do this. And so they taught these techniques to the sisters, and sort of going with your heart, going with how you feel, and searching within and finding out what you really feel like, what your true self and your true desires are. And the project was a disaster because Sister Elizabeth realized that she was really in love with Sister Mary. And everybody found all this junk in their hearts that they started accepting. And they basically ruined the whole order, if I remember. And they later admitted that this was just a total failure. Because, my God, if I followed my heart, I would punch out at least 7 people every day. If men were following their hearts, no woman would be safe. If we really followed, after all, these guys who are shooting up schoolrooms, they're following their hearts. So that's my opening shot against the heart and where following our hearts can lead us. It can really lead into cow poo, at best. Not at best, but the worst kinds of poo it could lead into. Now that said, there is such a thing as inspiration. And Srila Prabhupada, their letters, he writes, oh, it's so nice you've done such and such. Krishna is guiding you from within, or Krishna is inspiring you from within. So we're not anti-heart. The heart should just be chained and imprisoned and perhaps thrown overboard. But the heart comes into play when it comes into its best when it's dedicated to the spiritual master Krishna, and it's acting in subservience, in service to their desire. When my desire is linked with Krishna's desire, then my heart becomes purified. What is that? Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Kuriyakya. May my Guru Mukha Padma Vakya, the words from the lotus mouth of my spiritual master, Chitete Kuriyakya, it means oneness. May my heart become one with the words of my spiritual master. Then when I follow my heart, I'll go back to Godhead. Prabhupada, when he's translating Rishikesh and Rishikesh, to engage one's purified senses in the service of the master of the senses. So we're not anti-heart, but we want purified hearts. Therefore, following the regulative principles is so important. When you chant 16 rounds a day, you follow the regulative principles, then your heart is becoming purified. And then when you follow your heart, it's a friend instead of an enemy. So that kind of heart, where we look and say, how can I follow this instruction of my spiritual master? How can I best satisfy my spiritual master? And you know that there's such a thing as sentimental speculation and imaginative ecstasy, and you don't want your heart to become the excuse for just wantonness, for going off course. But you sincerely want to serve, and you're following the regulative principles so that the heart becomes a little trustworthy. And what you're doing is, how can I serve the spiritual master? So then you get, your heart tells me, why am I going to this place to distribute books? I could go there and sell more books. I could, why are we buying these outfits from Vrindavan? I could make these outfits. And I could do it this way, and this way, and this way, and this way. You can, green and pink and this and that. You get inspiration how to do things. How can I spread Krishna consciousness? You're speaking to someone, and you get some inspiration. I could, what to say. How do we don't walk around with scripts. When you meet a new person, say this, and then say this, and then say this, and then say this. There's inspiration there. And the more inspiration, the better. Because your heart is in it. You sincerely want this person to take a book. You sincerely want them to be attracted to Krishna consciousness. You know it's the order of your spiritual master, the desire of your spiritual master. And so you put your heart into it. And Krishna reciprocates. And you say something, and the person says, wow. And that can happen in any field of whether it's deity worship or book distribution, or kirtan, or temple administration, whatever it might be. So the heart is not damned, but we want purified hearts. And sometimes we get corrected. We think we get an inspiration, we do it, and then the spiritual master says, oh, okay, and then we do a course correction. But it wasn't just, we do a course correction. And we make further progress.
You were saying about, how some people are leaders, more scholarly, others are pujaris. I, for myself, I like to play the mridanga. I know from scripture that if you're doing devotional service and your mood is to serve, it doesn't matter what task you have, whether you're washing pots or playing mridanga. But when you have I have an attachment. Is that a pitfall to have an attachment to a particular service that you excel at?
That's not necessarily bad, and that's one of the things generally the spiritual master does. He says, this person could be in the book department, this person could be in the pujari department, this person could be in the kitchen. Let's see, it's generally what we like to do. And as a general rule, it encourages us in that, but not always. So sometimes, I like to edit, but they need I like to distribute books, but they need a pujari. Or I'm a pujari, but they need someone to drive the Sankirtan party sometimes. In the army, they try to match you up with something that fits your abilities and what you like to do. But finally, we've awarded with, and it's not that no, I just joined to do this. We get pressed into service sometimes, but generally.
But how do we avoid I don't always have an opportunity to play mridanga, and so sometimes that can be frustrating. Even though
therefore, we shouldn't be what they call in America one-trick ponies. A one-trick pony is a pony, of course, that knows how to do only one trick. So you don't want to be a one-trick pony. I know how to play mridanga. I don't know how to do anything else. But Prabhupada liked it when we, something cooking, something deity worship, something, all of these things you know how to do. And then something you may be really good at, something Right. Nice for the devotees to learn something of everything. Or, well, 90 devotees. I was in ashram not long ago, and it's like that, the brahmacharis. And they all, they all cook. And there's one or two who are like, wow, great cooks, and the others cook. But it means they could go anywhere and they could cook. Not that they say, well, could you send a cook with us? They could cook. So in that way, could you send us a mridanga player? No, we may not be the greatest mridanga players, but I know how to bang it. Thank you. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a question regarding this imaginary ecstasy.
Imaginative ecstasy, yes.
Thank you. And genuine ecstasy, or genuine happiness feelings actually. So
How do we discriminate between imaginative ecstasy and genuine ecstasy? One thing is, by Shastra sometimes we see, or by Srila Prabhupada's books we see, they're in ecstasy chanting Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. We don't accept that. They're in ecstasy dressing like gopis, but we don't accept that. Why? Shastra Virud. What is that? Rupa Nuga Virud Tapa Siddhanta Tata. Anything that's against what Rupa Goswami taught, reject it. We don't care how ecstatic it looks. Immediately reject it. So that's one thing. The ecstatic, spontaneous devotional service that's that's against the principles of enunciated by the Goswamis, we don't accept. That's the first thing. Second thing is, Rupa Goswami Prabhupada has listed in Nectar Devotion different symptoms like tears in the eyes and so on. But where does he give importance? Detachment. You can knock out a lot of the pseudo-ecstasy right there. They're in ecstasy and they've got a girlfriend. Reject it. You don't have to go further because Bhakti Prashana Bhava Virakti where there's action. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Priyoga Janyati Ashu Vairagya Gyanasha. Where there's actually ecstasy, there'll be material detachment. So where we see that you're ecstatic but not following the floor, I'm sorry.
can you say to the degree of our detachment, to that degree our feelings are deep?
There are degrees, but the first degree is no gambling, no intoxicants, no meat eating, no illicit sex. If you're not even there, forget ecstasy. Not even human life, civilized human life. It's not Bhakti Anyabhilashita Shunya. It's Kali's business. Deep down on the street, that's right, dharma. It's adharma. So, adharma and ecstasy. Now, gopis, they're totally into adharma. They cheat on their husbands, they dance with this boy in the forest. Totally adharma, but they're gopis. That all takes place in the spiritual world under the direction of the internal energy. But if we think that we are also going to do that, that this is what following the footsteps of the gopis means, then we're in illusion. And not only illusion, drinking poison. The Bhagavatam says one shouldn't even think about it. You shouldn't even think about it. So, yes.
I was thinking about that says that chanting Hare, that famous his first talk on mantra, it says, without any previous qualification, and can dance.
Dance in ecstasy.
Dance in ecstasy. So it does seem like there's something that can happen to a brand new person when they chant it.
That's by association.
That's the reflection or something.
Well, yeah, it's a reflection. But the reflection can turn into something real. One thing is I bring some assets from my previous life, and another is I don't have any assets, but I come in touch with a devotee and I get assets. Prabhupada explained that one time. He was in Mayapur walking with devotees, and Bhavananda Prabhu asked about what causeless mercy means. And Prabhupada made a gesture like this into his chest, as if he had a big sack of money and was giving it to him. He said, "Take this." He said, "That's causeless mercy. You didn't do anything to deserve it, but someone decided to give you this money. It's causeless mercy." So that's also described in the Nectar Devotion. Just the devotee's wishing. Wouldn't it be good if this person would become a devotee? Just by the wishes of the Vaishnava. Just if the Vaishnava glances at you, with mercy. From nowhere, the hunter became a Vaishnava by the association. And he had a little asset. He was appreciated that Narada was saying that he still wanted to give him some skins. So some assets may be there from our previous life, or no assets, but the devotees want to give you assets. That's the business of the Vaishnavas. They wander around trying to give people good fortune. They're also looking for people who have some good fortune to begin with and can build on that. Or we don't care, you have nothing, still, come on. Join the party. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So I also wanted to say some experience about this ecstasy thing. If you can explain it. So sometimes when we are in places and there's Kiental going on, because melodies are sung differently by different people. And I've been in a place where, for instance, a particular melody was being sung Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, Hare Hare. Collectively, the whole crowd sang 3 Hares, dancing in ecstasy. It went on for more than an hour. So what is this?
Well, there's some feeling. They're chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, and adding an extra Hare in there someplace. There's a few tunes that can happen. So we take it that they're sincere, but there's some discrepancy in the way things are being done. And that can happen like in the deity worship. She was very particular about that. People would get creative and do something with the deity worship and probably get them back into line because he wanted it done a certain way according to the tradition, according to his teaching. And there was sort of this persistent creative impulse to do something new. Prabhupada quoted, there's one Mr. Roy, I've forgotten his name. He's a Bengali poet from the previous century, and he wrote a poem, Kichu Muttan Koro, I think it was called. Just do something new. walk on your hands. Or he has all these fantastic examples. Do this or do that. But just do something new. Don't do what everyone else is doing. Do something new. So Prabhupada said this is your American disease, change disease, he called it. But you always want to do something new. In one sense, ecstasy is to do the standard thing with feeling. What is that called? Patram pushpam palam toyam. If someone offers me a leaf, flower, fruit, or water, bhaktya, with devotion, with heart, I accept it. So in one sense, ecstasy is just to do the standard things. Just do the standard thing. Don't invent some new thing. Do the standard thing with sincerity, with devotion. Because when we start inventing this and inventing that, Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness is like sending a rocket to the moon. You go just 1 degree off, and you go right past the moon. Shamsundar Prabhu told me this. So we don't want to invent something in the deity worship. Similarly in the kirtan, in the cooking, in the in the classes, we don't want to introduce something new, something fantastic, something all super. You can, but then we need to be careful. If we do the same things, Hare Krishna with only the right number of Hares, it's not going to put us in a straitjacket and dampen the ecstasy. If we follow the standard things in the standard way, you'll get more ecstasy. You get more ecstasy. And the deities are beautifully dressed in the standard way. I always talk about Los Angeles. Because they worship so beautifully. They worship the deities so beautifully. Every day it's on time. Every day it's beautiful. Every day it's standard. Every day, just wonderful. That's all you have to do. You don't have to give Krishna a surfboard or do something fantastic. Just do the standard things with devotion. And then it will be wonderful. Then it will be wonderful. It's not that you have to do something different. Walk on your hands. It's with love and devotion. Finally, devotion is devotion. It's not that when you do something no one's ever seen before, that shows that you're in ecstasy. Ecstasy is that you do the same thing with devotion. Again, regular principle. What's Raghunath Das Goswami doing? He's following the regular principles as if they were a line in the sand. But with what consciousness? With what love for Krishna is he doing that? But that's the thing. We follow the regular principles. And we carry out the instructions given by the spiritual master coming with succession. And we patiently work our way through from Shraddha, Sadhusanga, Bhajana Kriya. We hope that we'll get to Anartha Nivriti and forward. And by working our way through it, nothing is hollow, everything is solid. Finally it comes through the highest. If we try to jump there, somersault, we'll fall on our face. But if we follow, it will be wonderful. We've reached the end of our time. I have 4 copies of my book, Vanity Karma, 4 and only 4. And I'm attached to taking them with me to the next destination. So, that's it. Should we chant for a couple minutes more?
Yes.
Okay. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Jayadvaita Maharaj, Shri Gaur Bhakti Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath, Shyam Kundra Thakur Ki Gaur Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamana Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Go Premanande. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.
Hinten ist Sonne, vorne ist Schatten. Es hat zwei. Da, schau, da ist Sonne, da ist Schatten.
Okay, ist okay. Machen wir mal. Ist es immer noch live? Oh.
Continuando con el